Louis Woodruff Stout was the first child born to Charlotte Amelia Hansen and Louis Wilson Stout. He was born on May 23, 1914, in Leamington, Utah, a very small town about 20 miles northeast of Delta. His dad was a farmer, and growing up on a farm, he learned to work hard at a very young age. His best friends and playmates in Leamington were his younger sisters and his cousins, Archie Stout and Alvin Jensen, who later became the famous Dinosaur Jim. When he was 12, his family moved to the nearby town of Lindell, where they lived on a ranch, and then moved again to Oak City.
My dad would get a trainload of horses in, wild horses, and they'd unload them, and he'd bring them home and break them to work and break them to ride, and he'd ship them back away. I don't know where they came from. I just know that they came by rail. He was noted for the way he could train horses.
As a 16-year-old boy, instead of spending all of his spare time with his friends, Woody took a shovel and carefully dug under his house to install indoor plumbing for his family. It was a huge job, but he figured it out, and he did it all by himself. All of his siblings attended the same school class while he was growing up until he went to high school at Delta High. There he drove a horse and buggy 14 miles from Oak City to Delta with his sisters every day. After he graduated from Delta High, his family moved to a farm near Salt Air by the Great Salt Lake. The whole family worked hard to farm the land there, but the soil was so salty, they struggled to make anything grow. His family moved to Salt Lake City and lived in a house that still stands today at 966 East, 1300 South. His family continued to grow, and all 10 children lived here together. He loved his family, and they all looked up to him as a great example and friend. Woody was the oldest, then Inez, Alta, Naoma, Charlotte, Harold, Lorraine, Arza, Richard, and Grant. He was always an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and wanted to serve a mission, but he couldn't because his father's health was bad and they struggled financially. He sang with the Tabernacle Choir along with his 2 sisters, Inez and Alta, and his cousin, Alvin. Woody worked for a while as a taxi driver. He furthered his education and took a postgraduate accounting class at West High School. Then he got a job as an accountant at the Garfield Smelter by Kennecott. He actually had 2 different jobs there and would ride to and from work every day on the Bamberger Express. He went one weekend to the Coconut Grove in downtown Salt Lake. It was the largest dance hall in the country at the time. There he spotted a beautiful, tall, thin brunette and danced with her all night. Monday morning on the Bamberger Express, he couldn't wait to tell his friends about the beautiful Eccles girl that had smitten his heart. To his surprise, his friend and co-worker, Frank Larson, had the very same story. They finally figured out that the 2 Eccles girls were sisters. These 4 had a great time together. Woody couldn't marry Louise until Hazel and Frank got married first because Hazel was the older sister. Woody proposed to Louise Eccles at midnight on New Year's Eve at the Coconut Grove where they met. They were married for time and all eternity on December 1st, 1937, in the Salt Lake LDS Temple. He gave her a Singer sewing machine for a wedding present that she sewed on for the rest of her life. They lived in the Kimball Apartments on Main Street in Salt Lake and paid $35 a month for rent. It was a bit steep, so they moved to a home in Strong's Court where the rent was less, $25 a month. This is where they lived in 1938 when they had their first child, Ronnie. Woody and two of his friends each bought half-acre lots on 12th South in Bountiful for $400 apiece. They wanted to build their own homes. He dug the basement by hand with a shovel and a horse pulling a board across the ground. The cost of this house was $3,000. He loved building this house, and he did most of the building on his two friends' houses as well. In 1942, Jerry was born. World War II broke out, and Woody left his wife and two children and went bye-bye on the tutu, as Jerry used to say, to serve his country in the Aleutian Islands, building barracks. When he returned home, he followed his love for building and became a building contractor. In 1946, Levon was born. He loved his little girl, and he built her a little cupboard and a darling little table and chairs, and later a big playhouse. In 1948, Barbara was born. She was premature and only lived 2 weeks. Woody served in the bishopric of the Bountiful 4th Ward. He helped build the 4th Ward Chapel on 14th South. He built a new house and moved his family up to 4th East. His family loved growing up in this neighborhood and made lifelong friends here. Jolene was born in 1950. And Luann was born in 1953. David, his last child, was born premature in 1955 and only lived 2 days. The last house he built for his family was in 1958. It was a big house at the top of 5th South where he lived until he died. Bountiful was a small community when he moved here around 1940. But he built many houses in this city as it grew. He loved his extended family and had fun traditions like gathering at Liberty Park every Easter for a picnic. He took the family visiting every Sunday night, and nearly every summer he drove them to California to visit relatives that had migrated to the Sunshine State. He always took his tools along and did odd jobs while on vacation. He loved to serve whenever he could. Woody Stout was loving, logical, and grounded in faith and values. He let his children experience and learn by mistakes. He would assign a job, instruct how to do it, and then walk away and let you learn. He expected his children to obey and be responsible. He was sad and disappointed if they struggled, but he loved them through it. He taught all of his children how to drive before they were of age. He taught his children to work. He had Louise pick up his boys after school and bring them to whatever job he was working on. He taught them all how to correctly paint, sand, hammer a nail, unplug a toilet, splice a wire, change a tire, brake shoes, or an oil pan. To him, anything was possible. He would often say, "If anyone else can do it, you can do it." He was musical and artistic. He drew all of his own house plans. He sang in the ward choir faithfully his entire life. He glued together an old violin and taught himself how to play Sweet Hour of Prayer while Levon played the piano. He kept meticulous books and tracked every penny he spent. He was very frugal with his money. He would coast down the hills in his diesel Rabbit to save gas. He wore one brown shoe and one black shoe to church every week because he found a pair of mismatched Florsheim shoes that were just his size for a quarter. He had a bad back from working long and hard. He would come home from work late and lay on the living room floor to eat dinner, then crawl up the stairs to bed. He had a very tender heart and would read the stories in the Reader's Digest and cry. He had tears in his eyes every time he heard his daughters sing. He retired from building houses but didn't ever stop working. He would get up every morning and put on his stinky work clothes, then go and help someone. He became the ward fix-it man. He would do anything for anyone who needed help, but especially for his kids. He was a backyard kid with Levon. He built a float with Jolene. He built a kiln for Rich. He bumped out a wall for Luann's kitchen. He taught his boys their profession. When he had a heart attack a week before he died, he was in the hospital in intensive care. The heart monitor went crazy and the nurses ran into his room only to find him up on a table trying to fix the broken vent over the door. He loved and had a strong testimony of the gospel of Jesus Christ. He never missed church. He faithfully take Louise to the temple once a month for a date night. He donated the land for the church behind his house where he had planned on building a subdivision. He loved every single grandchild, and as each was born, he became more tender-hearted and kind. He was always the first to arrive and set up the flags and the outhouse for our annual Stout camp, up in the mountains.
Up in the mountains, you may run into the Stouts. Up in the mountains, the Stouts are camping out. If you want to eat a lot, dirty or feed a lot, this is the place to go. You can take off on a motorbike, go for a little hike, or sit around with people you know. You can take off on a motorbike, go for a little hike, or sit around with Uncle Joe.
Up in the mountains, you may run into the Scouts. Up in the mountains, the Scouts are camping out. If you want to eat a lot, dirty or eat a lot, this is the place to go. You can take off on a motorbike, go for a little hike, sit around with people you know. You can take off on a motorbike, go for a little hike, sit around with Uncle Joe. Up in the mountains, you may run into the Scouts. Up in the mountains, the Scouts are camping out. If you want to eat a lot, dirty or eat a lot, this is the place to go. You can take off on a motorbike, go for a little hike, sit around with people you know. You can take off on a motorbike, go for a little hike, sit around with Uncle Joe.
Woody Stout still lives on in many ways. His name lives on. His height lives on. His music lives on. His ears live on. His hairline lives on. His bad back lives on. His work ethic lives on. His building legacy lives on. His testimony lives on. And his eternal family, the kids of Weeze and Woody, still live on.
We're the kids of Weeze and Woody. We're the kids of Weeze and Woody.
We're the kids of Weeze and Woody.
And we're all from the Stout Family.
Of the children and he leads our family on.
His children are successful and they all enjoy beyond. They were taught well by their mom. We're the kids of Weeze and Woody. We're the kids of Weeze and Woody.
We're the kids of Weeze and Woody.
And we're all from the Stout Family.
Second there is Jerry, he's the rock salt of the earth. He has been a workaholic since the
We're the kids of Weeze and Woody.
We're the kids of Weeze and Woody. We're the kids of Weeze and Woody. And we're all from the Stout Family.
Lamon's the one who's always in the middle. Lamon,
She's singing or she's sewing and she's always on the run. Her family's always playing games that never know who won.
Because all the children son of a gun.
We're the kids of Weeze and Woody. And we're all from the Stout Family.
Next there is Jolene, she's still as skinny as a bean.
She has so many talents, she can do most anything. Her girls are sweet, the boys are
Technologically supreme. And Steve's singing butts on every green.
We're the kids of Weeze and Woody. We're the kids of Weeze and Woody. We're the kids of Weeze and Woody. And we're all from the Stout Family.
The youngest is Louise, she can balance any book.
She's sending things for nothing down to Mexico to row. She's master having handsome more than me and a great cook.
And Chris has all the looks.
We're the kids of Weeze and Woody. I'm a kid from Weeze and Woody. The very best one.
We're the kids of Weeze and Woody, and we live in Mexico.
We're the son-in-laws of Woody, and we knew right from the start that we had to cut the mustard just to win the girls' hearts. Woody set the standard higher than our efforts could impart, but they married us anyway. We're the sons-in-laws of Woody. We're the sons-in-laws of Woody. We're the son-in-laws of Woody.